Right, welcome along to the Dog and Pirate for the pre-match talking. Put your hands together for Supermac. Well, happy Christmas. We had a good one, and Newcastle had a good one by getting 3 points down at Leicester. What a performance that was!
Best I've seen for a very long time. The whole thing from back to front. I thought that every individual was absolutely superb. And if I had to pick anybody out, I just thought the actual work rate and what they covered in midfield by the two youngsters, Willock and Sean Longstaff, I thought they were absolutely fantastic. A lot of others got headlines, Bruno in particular. But I just thought those two worked their socks off, they really did. And when you've got two midfield players who are outrunning the opposition in the way that those two guys did, you can see the tongues hanging out of Leicester mouths. And I just sat, and of course, I've always said that it's all very well going 1-0 up, but at 1-0 up, that just spurs the opposition on to go for the equaliser. You get the second goal, and that's a killer blow. That really is a killer blow. It leaves a mountain to climb. And so Newcastle, the way they just went about it, they literally killed the game in the first 10 minutes. And Leicester, they were struggling from there on. And Newcastle, the way that they managed the game in general was absolutely fantastic. And I just couldn't see Leicester getting on the score sheet at all.
You talked about Bruno. I mean, what epitomises this team ethic at the minute is just Bruno sliding in to win a challenge and celebrating like he scored a goal.
Yeah, I think that's the spirit that's going right the way through the club at the moment. And when I say through the club, I mean generally, not just in the dressing room, but on match days, you can sense it all the way around. It's running through the supporters, and it's the whole thing has been engendered brilliantly by Eddie Howe and his coaches, and of course the players are drumming it all up as well with their great performances. So yes, it's a wonderful feeling to be a part of.
On the Leicester game again as well, it has to be said that was done without Callum Wilson, but also without ASM for a long period of the game. And again, credit Eddie Howe, because he's found a way around it, the problem that he's had. A lot of people saying without Wilson we're not going to score goals, we're going to struggle. Newcastle are currently third in the Premier League, scoring 3 goals away at Leicester, who just just started to find a little bit of form. Down to Eddie Howe again, and probably the best manager of 2022 without a doubt.
Yeah, he's certainly he's got a lot of insight and foresight as Eddie. He knows how to get the very best out of his guys. He knows them inside out, and you can feel and sense that everybody is happy in the roles that they're being asked to play, and that always helps greatly. But you mentioned ASM there. He still leaves me very, very frustrated, because for all the possession that he has when he's on the field, he doesn't make goals and he doesn't score goals. So that's an awful lot of possession that's really going to waste. And things are much more positive when he's actually not in the side. And the way that the forward line interacted, I thought it was a lot better from Chris Wood. A lot better. He seemed to be getting involved. It was a lot better by Chris Wood. Yeah, but come on, we've seen some right old shit from him, haven't we? But no, it was, in all fairness, it was a lot better. But I thought that he was sort of coming out of himself somewhat against Leicester,
and that he was happy to go joining in with other players where he had been somewhat aloof prior to that. So his confidence is obviously rising, well, as is the confidence of everybody.
After the game, the journalists obviously do their interviews with the managers, and they were speaking to Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers basically said, how did we miss out on Botman? Sven Botman has certainly become a cult hero amongst the fans, but certainly got a few admirers now amongst the other Premier League managers.
Yeah, his positional play is supreme. His timing is fantastic. Never wastes the ball, and he's still very young, particularly for a centre half. And I thoroughly enjoy watching him play. Just going on to the Leicester manager, bless him. The television showed an awful lot of him on the sidelines, and he never once was issuing any instructions out to the pitch. It was almost as if he was just left totally gobsmacked and had nothing to say whatsoever. And I thought, well, that just goes to show what a performance by Newcastle it really was.
Yeah. And obviously, since we last met, the Carabao Cup performance, Newcastle obviously through, but quarter-final draw at home, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, it doesn't. Quite happy with that, for sure. The opposition can't be, I don't think, after what they experienced earlier this week. And it wasn't much of a performance against Bournemouth, but sometimes in cup matches you just have to get out there and make sure that you sneak through any way that you can, and I felt that Newcastle certainly did that. They were good at sneaking on the night, but they certainly saved it up for Leicester, and it went from one extreme to the other, I think. But when you've got a defence as strong as Newcastle have at the moment, I tell you, it gives so much confidence to those in front of them, the midfield and to the forwards, and of course it gives confidence to the keeper behind as well. And you can see that confidence being taken around the country as Newcastle travel around, and it is quite a record that they are setting up defensively, I have to say. And oh dear, any professional footballer would just love to play in a side that is so effective at the back as Newcastle.
He hasn't been a regular in the team this season due to injury. He came back, started to get a couple of cameo roles. He's injured again. John Joe Shelby out for probably 6 to 8 weeks. Is that a big blow to Newcastle, or not as big as it may have been, maybe 12 months ago?
I don't think it's a blow to Newcastle at all, in all honesty. I think it is a blow for John Joe Shelby, because his contract is coming up, and I cannot see it being renewed, in all honesty. I don't wish to be unkind, but I think that Newcastle have moved on some distance beyond the scope of John Joe Shelby. That he doesn't have any pace at all. He's very one-paced, and so he tends to sit back all too much. That is not Newcastle's style. Newcastle United, they push right up to the halfway line. That's where they start defending, on the halfway line. But if you look back to when Steve Bruce was last in charge, that John Joe Shelby, he would go into the Newcastle penalty area to go behind the back four, and he was dragging the back four back, stopping them from pushing up, which is the normal thing for a defence to do, and it was all because of a lack of pace on his part. He was frightened to get caught out in midfield, And he wasn't doing anybody else any favours, particularly the youngsters in the midfield. And I just feel that Newcastle United have moved way on beyond John Joe Shelby. That he won't be with us next season, I don't think. And he really needs to, I think, settle for the fact that perhaps the Premiership is a bit too much for him and that he needs to go lower league.
Today's visitors, Leeds United. Lee Ryder in the press conference yesterday described it as a derby, or the closest we've got to a derby. It's not a derby, but it's against a team that's going to bring a vociferous support, which of course gets our crowd up. When there's only 500 there who've come up in minibuses, it's not quite the same. They're going to have a full away end today, full of Leeds fans who are going to be full of New Year cheer and cheer, I'm sure. But what's your take on this game today? Is it a potential banana skin?
Personally, I don't think so at all, no. I think that Leeds are made for Newcastle to play against. That they're not the most organised side. They do get stretched out. They tend to have an attack of just one man a lot of the time. And so the back four will be able to push up and get that sorted out, allow the right back to be flying on, and the midfield to get forward and push Leeds into their penalty area, and they'll get and Leeds will get stretched out, and in all honesty, and I stand to sort of hang myself really here, but I really can't see Leeds getting an effort on target at all today. I think Nick Pope will have a very quiet game, and I know I stand to be corrected later on today, but I really do feel a huge confidence about the game today, and that Newcastle will go out handsome winners, and Leeds will really suffer here at St James Park today.
Prediction?
My prediction, I'm going to take 3-0. It could be more. It could be more.
Chris Wood hat-trick, you heard it here first. Put your hands together for Supermac, he'll be back in after the game.